Yes, guys. Hi. So, very good afternoon. The first things first, I will be taking the attendances in the end, the last 10 minutes that I give you to recap. And this is the timetable that we're going to follow. And we've done these topics: life cycle costing, target cost gap, all of these things we've seen. And in the last class, we were in the first chapter where I had completed a decent amount of the first chapter. Right, I had completed till where? I had completed till fixed and flexed budgets. Okay. So, Zohaib, can you tell me what is a flexed budget? Fixed, we've seen what a fixed budget was. And then we saw flexed budget. What is a flexed budget? We looked at test your understanding 4. Yeah, so what is a flexed budget? Flexed budget is basically where you recreate the original budget for the actual activity level. Okay. And Alina, can you tell me what is types of standards? When it comes to the types of standards, what are the types of standards that we have seen? Do you know? These are the topics that I did on 29th of March. Okay, please type it. Ideal, attainable, current, basic. Very good, perfect. Today, what we're going to do, today is the 5th of April. And today we're going to start off with what is controllability. Okay. And don't worry, Zohaib. So again, we will complete the first and the second chapter today. And what is controllability? Controllability is, in simple words, I'll give you an example and explain, right? Imagine as a tutor, controllability. Because today, second chapter, there's a lot of theory. I will get to the technique of writing things, marking them, and explaining them. Example, I am a tutor. My job is to make sure that we take classes. Okay, I explain everything. Teach. Academic job. My job is more of an academic job, right? It's an academic job. Now, in Finchartered Academy, where I work, Finchartered Academy, okay, they obviously will check my performance. They will check my performance, right? Now, when they check my performance, they are checking two things. One, student satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5. And two is the electricity bill. Okay. So when they check my performance, these two things. Now tell me this one thing. How I teach is in my control, right? So your student satisfaction is in my control. But do you think the electricity bill is completely in my control. How I teach student satisfaction is in my control. However, is the electricity bill in my control? Yes or no question. The entire electricity bill that Finchartered Academy gets, is it in my control? No. Yes. Correct. It's not in my control, right? So again, a manager has to be awarded, rewarded based on things that are in his control. Has to be rewarded or questioned based on things that are in his or her control. And controllability is that, right? So a controllable cost for a manager will be the cost over which he has power and influence. The cost over which I have power or influence. For example, as a faculty member, I have power over, say, the cost of, like the cost of what control do I have power over? I have control over how many classes we take, and based on that, how much cost is involved. So controllability in itself is basically, again, write down while I speak. This is where the manager has power over cost. When will you say the manager has power over the cost? When this is where the manager has power over a cost. This is either when I can cause the cost to happen, or I can stop the spending. Either I can, because of my activity, this is where, because of my activity, the cost can go up or down. It's in my control whether the cost goes up or down. Okay, I will close this by giving one last example, one last analogy. We had of late, I had a get together in my house, right? So I had, now I'll not write this, it's just a simple an example of my own, but I had a get together in my house, so I had to go and buy some ingredients. So the cost of the ingredients was in my control, because maybe I can buy cheaper ingredient, maybe I can buy more expensive ingredient. But the cost of making it was not in my control because I did not make it. Okay, so this is what controllability says. That's all. Okay. Next, we're going to look at your understanding 5. What does the test your understanding 5 say? The materials purchasing manager. So this is the manager who is going and purchasing material. Imagine I am going and buying raw material. Of late we had Eid, right? So I go and purchase raw material, right? So I am assessed on the total material spending for the get together. I am also responsible for the cost of introducing safety measures regarding the use of material, and a notional is like a pretend, a part of the rental cost is given to me, right? So here what is happening, what you need to know for sure is when it comes to the cost of the material, I have control, right? But not entirely. What do I mean by not entirely? Is yes, the cost of the material I have control. But when my relative makes the dish, how much quantity will be used is not in my control. I'll give you a small, very, very small example. Suppose to make some dessert, I need to buy milkmaid. Okay. So say I buy milkmaid. The cost of this is in my control. I can maybe bargain. But when I come and give it in my house for my, say, my aunt to make the dessert, how much milkmaid she will use is not in my control. You understand? So certain things are in my control, certain things are not in my control. So a part of the total material expenditure is in my control, the cost, whether I'm bargaining or not. But how much material we use is not in my control. Right? Yes, when it comes to safety measures for using the material, again, when it comes to milkmaid, it's a tin. So sometimes you might cut your hand while opening it. So you have to be very careful. Again, that will be in my control because I can buy accordingly. I can probably buy safer material. But the rent is not at all in my control because I'm a purchasing manager. So yes, I'm putting this in green. What is partly in my control, I'm putting in orange. Okay, total material. Again, the cost is in my control, but how much we use is not in my control. Cost of introducing safety measures, yes, to an extent it is in my control. But what is I'm putting in red is not at all in my control. I hope that is clear. Now, coming to absorption costing versus marginal costing. Now, generally, people really break their heads over absorption costing and marginal costing, and I honestly don't understand why. Okay, I'll just explain this in simple words in such a way that hopefully by the end of this class, not hopefully, for sure, by the end of this class, you will be mastered with absorption costing. Okay, so just give me 1 second. I'm just putting my device on charge. Yes, so it's basically going back to F2. And you like F2, correct, Alina? Give me 1 second. Guys, come back. I'm going to teach you absorption costing versus marginal costing. What is absorption costing? What is marginal costing? Again, I'm going to give you a small scenario. And with that scenario, explain to you both absorption and marginal. What is absorption cost? Say I make tea. I'll keep all this so that it's easier because there's a lot of theory coming, so I'll have all this in place. I make tea. Okay. And I rent an office of how much? I rent a restaurant space for 10,000 rupees. I make 1,000 cups of tea a month. Now, this information is there. And now I want to calculate the cost per teacup. So what I'm going to do is this. Okay, I'm going to keep absorption and margin. What is absorption costing? And no, Alina, let me try to prove you wrong. It's very simple. Okay, F2 and the concepts are also very interesting. So suppose we're making tea. And obviously, what are the costs involved in making tea? We will have milk, tea powder, sugar, maybe a little bit of water. So all this adds up to be material. So the material cost per cup of tea, the material cost is per cup of tea is 5, suppose. So whether you're doing marginal costing or absorption costing, the material cost is 5 per cup. 5. In both cases, it's 5. Okay. Then we need somebody who is preparing the tea. And for each cup, we spend about $2. Suppose it's just all an example. Okay, so don't think where is this $2 coming from. And even for marginal costing, we will do the same thing. And remember, material and labor, what type of costs are they? Material and labor, they are what type of costs? Are they overheads? Are they prime costs? You remember from last class? They are variable, okay, but are they overheads or are they prime costs? Prime costs, yes. Very good, right? So these are your prime costs. So that was just quick recap of what we saw. These are prime costs. Okay. Then what do you have? Then you have variable overheads such as electricity. Okay. Have your overheads. Any variable costs I'm putting, okay? Variable costs, $3. But say when it comes to this overhead, fixed cost, the rent is 10,000, correct? The cost is 10,000. The overhead itself is 10,000. And how do I calculate the cost per cup? See, I'm making this costing per cup. Both of this is per cup. But the rent is given as 10,000 per month. So in this case, I will have to do, I will have to do a calculation. I will have to say, if the rent is 10,000 rupees per month, and I'm making 1,000 cups per month, the rent cost per month will be 10,000 per month. Number of cups per month is 1,000. So the rent per cup or the per cup will be 10,000 divided by 1,000, 10. So in absorption costing, we will do this. 10 per cup. Right? Marginal costing people, they are lazy. They will just ignore this part. They will not do this thing that I did here. They'll just ignore it. They are lazy people. They are not doing this. What I'm putting in the box, no, marginal costing people, they don't do it. They'll just ignore that part. right? So what do absorption costing people get? Absorption costing people get the full cost. How much is the full total cost? 5 plus 2 plus 3 plus 10. It's 20. It's a little expensive deal. So the full cost is 20. But the marginal costing people, they don't get the full cost because remember, they have ignored which cost? They have ignored the rental cost. Therefore, they will say that the total cost, they'll not call this the full cost. They'll call this the marginal cost. And how much is the marginal cost? 5 plus 2 plus 3? 10. So that's the only difference between absorption costing and marginal costing. Suppose you sell each tea for 25 rupees. In which case, what will happen? Absorption costing, selling price is 25. In marginal costing, also the selling price, obviously, it's the same thing you're selling. So it's 25. Okay. So this guy, absorption costing guy, he has his selling price of 25. He has his full cost of 20. Therefore, you know that the profit per cup per unit in absorption costing is $5. But the thing in marginal costing, how much is the profit? 25 is the selling price. The marginal cost is 10. We have ignored the fixed cost. We have ignored the overhead. So the profit in this case is $15. Can you call this $15 as your profit, guys? Because remember, profit is something you get after deducting all the costs. And here you haven't deducted all the costs. So can this be called our profit? No. What do you call this? F2 experts. Selling price minus just the variable cost. What is that called? Very good, Fayaz. So it is the contribution. So this $15, you cannot, again, the ones who are watching the recording, you cannot call this your profit because you have still not deducted. See, in the cost, you have still not deducted the major cost of rent. So it's unfair to call this $15 your profit. You will call it your contribution. Contribution is like your profit without deducting your fixed cost. You haven't deducted your fixed cost yet. Like profit without deducting fixed cost. I'm putting it as FC. So if you remember, I told you contribution is profit without deducting fixed cost. And the contribution is how much per piece? 15. And how many pieces were we making? 1,000. So what do you do? In absorption costing case, the total profit, I'm putting it as TP. The profit is 5 per piece. We're making 1,000 pieces. So the total profit is 5,000. But in case of marginal costing, you will not call it TP. It's not your total profit. Your total contribution will be 15 into 1,000, which is 15,000. So your total contribution is 15,000. Right? Now remember, contribution is profit without deducting the fixed cost. And remember, marginal costing people were lazy people. They did not do which process? They did not do this calculation because they were lazy. So think about it. From total contribution, only one thing is yet to be, and we know that the total is 10.
6 o'clock.
Guys, am I audible? Am I audible? right? So remember I told you that the total contribution, from the total contribution, all you have to deduct is the total fixed cost in order to get the total profit. So these guys, what they're doing is they are deducting this rent directly without doing the calculation that we did here. So from the total contribution, if we deduct the fixed cost, 10,000 minus 15,000, this is the total fixed overhead. If I deduct that, I will get the total profit. How much is the total profit in case of marginal costing? 15,000 is the contribution, fixed cost is 10,000. So how much is the total profit? 5,000. So in both cases, guys, you got the same answer, right? Both in marginal costing, also you've got 5,000 as the profit, total profit. In absorption costing, also you've got 5,000 as the total profit. In both cases, I got 5,000. The only difference is these marginal costing people were lazy to do what I have marked in red. They were lazy to absorb. This rent was given per month. They were lazy to absorb it per unit. They were lazy to absorb it per cup. So the only difference is what I'm putting in blue. They ignored that part. Because they ignored that part, although absorption costing profit people got the full cost, marginal costing people got the marginal cost. That is the cost without taking into consideration the fixed overhead. Selling price, again, as usual, was the same for everybody. But again, absorption costing people, from the selling price, they've deducted the full cost. So they got the profit. But marginal costing people, from the selling price, they only deducted the marginal cost. So they got something known as the contribution. Contribution is selling price minus all the variable cost without deducting the fixed overhead. What they did is they got the contribution per unit. They multiplied it with the number of units to get the total contribution. And from total contribution, we know contribution is profit without deducting the fixed overhead. So simply you just deduct the fixed overhead of 10,000 and you'll get the same answer. Why? Because they were lazy to do what I did in red. This is, if this is clear, you know what is absorption costing and marginal costing. That's all. How many of you find please type in the chat box whether absorption costing is better for you or you prefer marginal costing. Which type of costing do you prefer doing? Fayaz feels absorption cost. Sandesh, absorption cost. Alina, marginal cost. So here, absorption or margin? Okay, I will move on. Right? So absorption costing, marginal costing is done. Now, so two people preferring absorption costing, two people preferring marginal costing. Now we will look at a sum. Okay. But before we do the sum, I want to explain to you something. And that is this. Methods of absorption. What do I mean by methods of absorption? Listen very, very carefully. Here, in this sum, I told you that the fixed overhead was 10,000. And I absorbed it on the basis of number of cups or on the basis of number of units. So one way of absorption, three methods of absorption are absorbing on the basis of number of units as it was explained in the above example. You take the fixed overhead and divide it by the number of cups or any units. In my example, it was cups. Take the fixed overhead divided by the number of cups to get the overhead per unit or per cup. That is one way, which is what I did here. The rent was 10,000. The number of cups was 1,000. So 10,000 divided by 1,000, the overhead is 10 per cup. That is absorbing on the basis of number of units. The next method of absorption is what? The next method of absorption is, anybody knows, any guesses? The next method of absorption is on the basis of number of labor hours. Now, listen very careful to number of labor hours, because if the minute you understand labor hours, automatically you will understand machine hours also. There will be absolutely no difference. The minute you understand one, the other will automatically be clear. So what do I mean by absorption on the basis of labor hours? Is again, the overhead, go back to this example, okay? The rent is 10,000. Number of cups is 1,000, but I will not absorb on the basis of number of cups. No, sorry. I'm putting that in black. I'm not using that. It's burnt. Black and burnt. The other piece of information is, in this factory, the rent is 10,000, yes, but the laborers work in the factory for a total of 500 hours. Labor hours in the restaurant. Now, this was a restaurant. So in total, we spent 500 hours of labor. Okay, and another piece of information is, each cup takes 1 labor hour to make. Now, this is a piece of information, so I'm putting it in bold. So the second method of absorbing this 10,000 per unit, catching this 10,000 per unit, is 10,000 is the rent. We stay in the restaurant for 500 hours. So the rent per hour will be 10,000 is the rent for 500 hours. Therefore, the rent per hour will be 10,000 divided by 500. 200 is the rent per hour. So you will get the overhead. This will be the rent per labor hour. Now that you know how much is the rent for 1 hour of labor, each cup takes, suppose, for example, each cup takes 2 hours of labor. Now, again, for coffee, tea, it will not. I'm just, from easy calculation, I'm telling you. Each cup takes 2 hours of labor. So what will you do? Here, you had the rent of 10,000. You know that we were spending 500 hours in the factory. So 10,000 divided by 500, 200 was the rent per hour into the number of hours each cup takes. Each cup takes 2 hours. So you know you have to pay a rent of 200 per hour, and 1 cup takes 2 hours. So the rent paid for each cup is 400. So the second method technically involves which steps? It involves a couple of steps. The steps are, take the rent and divide it by the number of hours, whether labor hours or machine hours, I don't care. You will then get the rent per hour. Once you get the rent per hour, multiply the rent per hour with the hours each unit takes to get the overhead per unit. So I can break the second method into A, B, C. This is A. This is B. Okay, A, B, and C. Okay. So on the basis of labor hours, this is what you get. Take the rent and divide it by the number of hours. You will get the rent per hour. Multiply the rent per hour with the hours each unit takes to get the overhead per unit. So what I'm putting in blue are the 3 steps. Okay. And this is the same for whether you do it on the number of labor hours or machine hours. The logic is the same. So the third method is to use on the basis of machine hours. The basis of machine hours. So the steps for whether you do on the basis of machine hours or labor hours are the exact same. Okay. I hope the methods of absorption are clear to everybody. These are the 3 methods of absorption. Okay. A, divide the overhead cost by the number of hours. You will get the overhead. You get the overhead per hour. Once you do that, multiply the overhead per hour with the number of hours each unit takes. To get the overhead per unit. Guys, I hope what is in blue is clear. Okay, with that, this is also done. Methods of absorption. Okay, and now I think we're in a good position to do illustration 1. What do I mean by what is illustration 1? Again, I will walk through it faster. Okay, and I'll only do sky bar. Moon bar and sun bar you have to do because of the shortage of time and for practice. The question tells you to do absorption costing. Remember this. Meaning that the overhead also has to be absorbed. You need to calculate it per unit. Okay, so I'm doing sky bar underneath over here. So the sky bar is material cost per unit is 0.17. So let it just be there because it's there. It's very simple and straightforward. Labor cost per unit is 0.07. Very good. No need to bother about anything. Actual production sales 500,000, but I don't need to worry about that right now. Labor hours per unit 0.001. Direct machine hours per unit 0.01. Selling price per unit is how much? 0.5. And annual production. So you see production overhead is there of 80,000. Let's absorb this because the question doesn't say anything. I will absorb this on the basis of machine hours. 。 . 。  . 。 . 。 . . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . 。 . Okay. So as the textbook also says, the textbook is saying what I mentioned just now. Either you can absorb on the basis of units, right? But for this company, it's not fair because this company is making 3 products. So either that or machine hours or labor hours. Okay, so either we can take machine hours or labor hours, but in this case, we're making chocolates. So you have to use some common sense. When you make chocolates, okay, a bar of solid milk chocolate, a fondant milk chocolate egg, biscuit, and whatever it is, right? So we're making chocolates. And in this case, most likely, it is the machines that will be used more than labor, physical labor. So therefore, we have decided to absorb the overhead on the basis of machine hours. But remember, you can also do it on the basis of labor hours. It will not be wrong. So the overhead is how much? 80,000. So think about it. If the overhead is 80,000 and you absorb on the basis of labor hours, what did I say? The first step is divide the overhead by the number of hours. So overhead is 80,000. Number of machine hours is X. I don't know it. Why I don't know it? Because I have to calculate. Because Skybar is 0.01 machine hours. Skybar is 0.01 hours per unit. But how many units of Skybar are we making? 5 lakh or 500,000. So Skybar will take how many hours to make all the Skybars? How many machine hours? 0.01 into 500,000 is how much? I'm not sitting with the calculator, right? 0.01 into 500,000. 5,000. So Skybar, to make all Skybars, it will take 5,000 machines. Moon egg, again, each moon egg takes how many? 0.04 hours. And we're making 150,000 moon eggs. So 0.04 into 150,000. Also, guys, the reason I'm doing moon egg is because I need to do moon egg to calculate the total machine hours spent in this company, which is 6,000. And what about Sunbar? Sunbar is 0.02 into 250,000. 0.02 machine hours into 250,000, which is 5,000. So the total machine hours will be 16,000. So now that you know the total machine hours, you can substitute it in X. The total machine hours is now 16,000. Now that you know the total machine hours, it's very easy because what did I say? Divide the overhead cost by the number of hours. The overhead cost is 80,000. So it will be 80,000 divided by 16,000, which is $5 per hour. Now that first step is done, we move to the second step. What is the second step? The second step is to get the overhead per hour, which I've got. Third step is multiply the overhead per hour with the number of hours each unit takes to get the overhead per unit. Think about it. The overhead is 5 per hour, $5 per hour, but each Skybar takes how many machine hours? 0.0. So that is the third step. Multiply the overhead per hour with the number of hours each unit takes. Each Skybar takes 0.01 hours. So 5.01 is 0.05. Therefore, the overhead cost for the sky bar, material, I already know it, it's 0.17. Labor, I already know it, it's 0.07. Overhead will be 0.05. Therefore, the total cost will be how much? Total cost will be 0.17 plus 0.07 plus 0.05, which is 0.29. Now that I know the total cost, how much is the total selling price? Again, we're doing absorption costing, remember. So the selling price is 0.5. So if the selling price, we're selling something for 0.5 and the cost is 0.29, the profit per unit will be how much? 0.5 minus 0.29. I believe it is 0.21. Did you all get the answer? Very good. 0.21. So can we check if that's the right answer? 0.21. Is that the right answer? Yes, that is the right answer for the sky bar. Similarly, you can do moon bar and sun bar on your own. Okay, I hope there's absolutely no problem with this. So we've also done illustration 1. Next, and technically the last topic of this chapter is, because I already marginal costing, I've told you what it is. I've told you what is contribution also, right? So technically the last topic of this chapter is under absorption and over absorption. What is under and over absorption? Okay, let me give you an example, right? Say I'm going to have a party in my house. Yes, we did that day, if you remember, actual flexed variance. I'm going to have a party in my house. Okay. The planned overhead or the budgeted overhead. Suppose I'm going to spend, I plan to spend 12,000 rupees for how many guests? 100 guests. This is the plan. So I had before itself made up my mind and I had determined that I will spend again 12,000 for 100 guests. So I had planned to spend 12,000 divided by 100 is how much? 120 rupees I had planned. Now this is the planned. This is the estimated amount of money that I planned to spend. Okay. This is the estimated amount of money that I plan to spend per person. So I plan to spend 120 rupees per person. Now what is happening? When I plan to spend 120 rupees per person, actually, maybe, it happens, no? Sometimes when you have a party, some extra people come or some less people come. Have you ever called some people, but then not everybody came? One person was not well, so they didn't come. One person had work, so they didn't come. Yeah. So actually, 110 guests came. Or say actually, yeah, actually 110 guests came. So what will you do again based on your estimate? You will say, oh, 10 people extra are coming. Okay, so based on the estimate, you're supposed to spend for 110 guests 120 rupees. So you're supposed to spend how much? You're supposed to spend 120 into 110, which is 120 into 110. You're supposed to spend 13,200. This was the estimated amount for the actual number of guests. But when you finally get the bill, in the restaurant, the bill is for 15,000. This is the actual bill. 15,000. So tell me, guys, when you had estimated, did you underestimate or did you overestimate? You estimated 13,200. Very good. You underestimate. And this is exactly what under or over absorption says. Right? You first calculate the overhead absorption rate. What is the overhead absorption rate? The rate at which you plan to absorb the overhead per person, per unit, whatever it is. In our case, the overhead absorption rate was 120. Why? It was the budgeted overhead was 12,000. The budgeted volume or the budgeted guests volume was 100. So the budgeted overhead absorption rate was budgeted overhead divided by budgeted volume. Overhead by budgeted volume. What did you do? 12,000 divided by 100. So the overhead absorption rate was 120 per person. Once you have this overhead absorption rate, you know that this is how much you are estimating. You are estimating 120 rupees per person. You will absorb it. You will actually absorb it. So second step is, step one is to calculate the overhead absorption rate, also known as OAR. Step two is to the overhead absorption rate, the amount that you are estimating, you need to estimate it for the actual number of units. Absorb that overhead. For the actual number of actual activity level. So our overhead was how much? 120. Actual activity level was 110. So we said it is 13,200. This is how much you absorbed or estimated. This was step. Once you have the absorbed or estimated cost, you will third step compare the absorbed overhead with the actual. In our example, the absorbed overhead was 13,200. Actual, how much did I say actual was? It was 15,000. So I have under-absorbed or underestimated the cost. Right? So this is an underestimation. There was an underestimation. And therefore, I call this under-absorption. If we had overestimated our cost, we will say there is an over-absorption. With which whatever is there in the textbook, I've covered. Okay. Guys, I hope this is clear. Very good. Perfect. Now we can look at illustration 2. We will now move to illustration 2. A company budgeted to produce 3,000 units of a single product in a period at a budgeted cost. Okay, blah, blah, blah. All this information is there. In the period covered by the budget, actual production was 3,000 and actual fixed overhead expenditure was 5% above the budget. All other costs were as budgeted. What was the amount, if any, of over or under absorption? Okay, so again, you will just implement the 3 steps that I gave you. What were the 3 steps that I gave you? The 3 steps were, again, step 1 is what? To know how much. See here. Calculate the overhead absorption rate. That is the first thing you will do. Right? How do you calculate the overhead absorption rate? Again, budgeted overhead was how much? Budgeted to produce 3,000 units. Okay. In the period, the budget covered by the budget, actual production was 3,200 and actual fixed overhead was, all other costs were as budgeted. What was the, yeah, so how much is the budgeted? See, the overhead itself is 9 per unit for 3,000 units. So 9 into 3,000 is how much? 9 into 3,000 will be 27,000. So the first thing is you need the budgeted overhead itself in this question. You don't know what is the budgeted overhead. But in this case, think about it. I'm just rephrasing the same in the same format I'm copy pasting, right? So that it will be easy because it's the same thing that we're doing. Right? So again, here we are planning to spend 9 rupees. Budget is 9 rupees for 3,000 units. So 9 for 3,000 guests. Therefore, the budgeted overhead will be 9 into 3,000, which is 27,000. We got that. The budgeted volume is how much? Do we know? The budgeted volume? Yes, it is there. Think about it. The budgeted volume was 3,000. Yes. So we have the budgeted fixed overhead cost, blah, blah, blah. But here what is happening is, please just give me one second. Yeah. So here what is happening is, again, think about it. 27,000 is the budgeted overhead, but there is a little bit more complication here. In this question, you've absorbed 27,000, but how much did you actually spend? We have to calculate that. So you've absorbed 27,000, but how much did you actually spend? You're supposed to calculate it. How will you calculate it? The actual production was 3,200. And think about it. 3,200. 3,200. And remember, the overhead was 9 per unit. Right? So budgeted overhead was 27,000. Budgeted volume was how much? Budgeted volume, okay? 3,000. Therefore, 27,000 divided by 3,000. In fact, that is already there in the question. 27,000 divided by 3,000, it is 9. We got the estimate. But absorb the overhead for the actual activity level. The overhead is 9 per piece. Okay. And the actual activity level is 3,200. So 9 into 3,200 will be 28,800. This is how much you absorbed or budgeted. You have to step 3, compare the absorbed overhead with the actually incurred overhead. So 28,800 has to be compared with the actually incurred overhead. Right? The question says that the actual overhead was 5% more. So 5% more than what was originally expected. Originally expected was 27,000. So 5% more of that will be 27,000 into 1.05. So what we will do is 27,000 into 1.05 will be 28,350. So again, there is what you absorbed 28,800, but actual was 28,350. So you over absorbed by 450. Very good. So again, the steps are what? It's very simple. I plan to spend the original budget is 9 rupees. And the original units is 3,000. So 9 into 3,000. The original budget is 27,000. The original volume is 3,000. So it is 9 per person. Based on that 9, we absorbed. How did you absorb? By multiplying it with the actual activity level. According to this question, the actual activity level is 3,000. So 9 into 3,200, the absorbed overhead is 28,000. Final step is to compare the absorbed overhead with the actual overhead. You don't know the actual overhead, so let it be X. But the absorbed overhead is 28,800. So the actual overhead, we don't know. So we have to calculate. But the question says that the actual overhead expenditure was 5% more than budgeted, not absorbed. Remember, 28,800 is absorbed. Budgeted overhead was 27,000. So it will be 5%. The actual is 5% more than budgeted. So it will be 5% more than budgeted. So which is meaning budgeted was 27,000. 5% more than that will be 28,350. So you have this figure there, 8,350. The reason I'm explaining this for the second time is because people get confused between budgeted and absorbed. For one final time, I promise I'll not continue after this. One final time I'll explain. Remember, first step is to calculate the OAR. Spending 9 rupees for 3,000 units. So the budgeted overhead is 27,000. This is very important. Budgeted overhead is 27,000. 27,000 divided by the budgeted volume of 3,000 would be 27,000 divided by 3,000. The OAR is 9. Now, based on the OAR of 9, you multiply the OAR of 9 with the actual activity level to get the absorbed overhead. So 9 is the OAR. Actual activity level is 3,200. So the absorbed over 28,800. Third and final step is to compare the absorbed overhead of 28,800 with the actual overhead. But in this case, in this question, the actual overhead is not given. So we have to find it out. Again, the question is saying the actual overhead is 5% more than budgeted. So which one will you take? Is this the budgeted overhead or is this the budgeted overhead? Remember, 28,800 is the absorbed overhead. You have to take the budgeted overhead of 27,000. And the actual overhead is 5% more than the budgeted overhead. So the actual overhead is 28,350. So there is an over absorption. So you absorbed 28,800 or you estimated 28,800, but the actual cost was 28,350. It was lesser. When you estimated a little more. Okay, I hope this is clear. Why didn't they calculate 5% on 9? Because again, that would be, this 27,000 is the budgeted overhead. Right? You need to calculate the absorbed overhead, and in order to get the actual overhead, you will take 5% of the actual overhead. The question itself is telling you that you have to take 5% of the actual overhead. Sorry, the question is saying the actual overhead is 5% above the budgeted. And what was budgeted, Zohaib? Budgeted was 3,000, not 3,200. So that's why budgeted will be 3,000 into 9, because the budget was 3,000, not 3,200. Is that clear? Now, I've already explained to you what is marginal costing. So I'll just fit in here. I'll just do for 2,500 units. This illustration 3. Selling price is 20 per unit. 2,500 units, 20 into 2,500 is 50,000. Right? So how much is it? 50,000. Revenue will be 20 is the selling price. For 2,500 units, 20 into 2,500 is 50,000. What about variable cost? Variable cost, again, material is 8. Sorry, material is 6, labor is 2. So the variable cost is 8. 6 plus 2. 8 into 2,500 is how much? Oh, but there's also variable overhead cost per unit. Variable is 4. So it's 6 plus 2 plus 4. Sorry, I missed one variable cost. 6 plus 2 plus 4. 12 into 2,500. See, all these are variable costs. So 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 into 2,500 is 30,000. Okay, so you will get the contribution. How much is the contribution? Selling price minus variable cost is the contribution. Remember, so 50,000 minus 30,000, contribution is 20,000. From this contribution, you simply have to deduct the fixed cost. Fixed cost is how much? Again, you don't have to absorb here. That entire headache of absorption is gone because you're not doing absorption costing. And because there's no absorption, there is no question of under absorption, over absorption. You simply deduct the fixed cost, 25,000. Therefore, it's a loss of 5,000. That's it. 5,000 units, 7,000 units, 500 units, 10,000 units, you can try it on your own. Now that you know the loss is 5,000, you can find out the loss per unit. The loss is 5,000 for 2,500 units. So the loss per unit is 2. I hope there is no problem. Okay, see, I've done 2,500 units. It's done. Finally, we look at advantages of absorption costing and advantages of marginal costing. Now, this is very easy. The biggest advantage of absorption costing is we don't ignore any cost. We take everything into consideration. And knowing whether you have underestimated, overestimated is very helpful in controlling cost. Oh, I thought it will be 12,000, but actually if the bill is 14,000, you know that, oh my God, there is a bill of more than what I estimated. So it'll help rolling cost. You will be more careful. And absorbing, in especially small organization, absorbing the overheads to get the full cost really helps in getting the overall cost. But the problem of absorption costing is there's a challenge. It's a little not so easy. Oh, first of all, you have to absorb. After absorbing, that's not the end of the story. You have to say whether you have over absorbed, under absorbed. So the only challenge with absorption costing is that it is more complex and time consuming. So I hope you can just make a note of the advantages and disadvantages of absorption costing because it's very easy. Next, we look at advantages and disadvantages of marginal costing. Now, the disadvantage of marginal costing is we ignore the fixed cost. Fixed costs are ignored and are not absorbed, are not taken into consideration. But what's the advantage? It's very easy. It's fast. There's no headache of under absorption, over absorption. Right? And contribution is a more effective measure to see how we are performing more than profit. I mean, at this level, you just need to know contribution per unit is constant, but profit per unit will vary depending on the sales volume. Right? So again, that's all. These are the advantages and disadvantages of marginal costing. The easiest to remember advantage is it's simple to operate. It is useful in the decision-making process. Why? Because again, it's basically saying that, okay, we're ignoring the fixed costs. We're only taking the things that are changing. Now, again, there's a lot more detail to that, but I don't want to get into it. And again, there is no under and over absorption here. So with that, this chapter is over. Now we're going to look at data and information. What is data? What is information from the second chapter? Imagine let's make coffee, or let's make biryani. Zohaib wants to learn how to make biryani from it. So what I'm doing is, I tell Zohaib, first call, I tell Zohaib, take rice, take, now this is a realization that I don't know how to make biryani, right? So take rice, take, okay, take tomato, take onion, take oil. I know the first step. You have to take oil, put onion, put tomato, let it kind of sit for some time. Take potato, sorry, not potato. Take oil. Okay. Then chicken, spices. Okay. With all due respect to the vegetarians, Fayaz, I will stick to this. But again, we will take these items, and I tell Zohaib that you take all this, you take salt, spices, you keep everything. And then I cut the call. With this piece of whatever I've told here, can Zohaib make the biryani? In the first call, whatever I've told, can he successfully make the biryani? No. Because I've just given like the basic, you can't make it. It's just very raw. These are like just some random facts that in biryani, you have to put rice. The second call, what I will do is I will tell him what to do step by step. You take the oil, put it in the thing, put it in the vessel, cut onion, cut tomato, put it there, put some spices, then you add some curd, then you add. So basically, you do all that. I do everything. I tell him step by step. Now, do you think he can make biryani? After the second call, can he make the biryani? Yeah. Yes, after the second call, he can. In the first call, it was just raw facts that was not directly and completely useful for Zohaib to make a decision. Making biryani, but I'm stopping that here. They were just raw facts. In the second call, I took the raw facts, refined and processed the raw facts, and now it is useful for Zohaib to make a decision. It's 6:55, so there's a break time. Give me 1 second. The first one, where it's just raw facts that is not completely useful for decision making, is data. And in the second case, where data is taken, data is refined, data is processed, and now it is useful for decision making, is information. That's it. So data is raw facts that isn't directly useful for decision making. Information is refined and processed data that is now finally useful for decision making. Okay, at 6:56, you can come back at 7:06 sharp. So it's 7:06 p.m. Are we all back? Just confirm. We have about 45 minutes of class pending, and I have quite a lot to do. Yeah. Okay. So we've seen what data is. Data is basically raw facts that is not directly. So data is what? These are raw facts. Okay. Data isn't directly useful for decision making. It's not yet processed in a form that is suitable for decision making. However, what is information? Information is when you take data, when you refine it, when you process it, it becomes useful for decision making. That is what information is. And every organization needs information. It is an important requirement for the organization to make any decisions, right? And a lot of people need information also, right? So test your understanding one. A working definition of information would be facts you can work with, facts useful to the production manager, facts useful for the decision maker. What do you think is the answer to test your understanding one? A, B, C, D. Very, it's D. That's all. Now coming to characteristics of good information, and I do remember one. I generally hate to just read from the textbook. So I have this one specific video of mine where I'm talking about qualities of good information. So just give me 1 minute. Guys, just give me 1 second. Now, what I will do is I will just continue with what I was doing, which was qualities of good information. Guys, believe it or not, I don't know how many of you will believe this story, but I wanted to once meet a man. Okay, one gentleman I wanted to meet. And I called him and I asked him, sir, where is your office? You know what he responded? He said, sir, yes, come. I asked him, sir, can you tell me where is your office? So I said, okay, sir, and I cut the phone. Then I thought about it. I did the math. Guys, I hope you can hear me. So he said it's under a tree. So I kept the call and was thinking to myself, okay, so I have to go to his office. Okay, with this information, can I go to his office? Can I reach his office? No. Think about it. How many trees I should go under and find his office? If his office is there, I have to go under all the trees to find his office. Right? In scenario one, it's not good information. But in scenario 2, I called him again and I said, sir, just send me your location. Now tell me, in scenario 2, can I reach his office? Yes, correct. That is what is information. Information, it has to be precise. It has to be exact. It has to be to the point. So good information is always accurate. Okay. Good information is always precise. It is always accurate. If I tell you, oh, I'm sitting under a tree, then that is not good information because you will not be able to use it and exactly come to the destination. Okay, I'm clearing this. Next is, guys, what I'm thinking is, now that we've completed the first chapter, I think that's it. PM, this free batch, you will end it. I think you can go and write the exam. Do you agree with me? Because first chapter is over. You understood everything. I think we can stop the PM free batch. Exactly. Would you be happy? No, because it's not complete. So for good information, April Fools is over. Yeah. So for good information to be what? For good information to be, for information to be good, it needs to be complete. Okay. Next is ACCUR. Yeah. Next is, imagine to do ACCA, it costs you, imagine, okay, it costs you 20,000. I don't know, $20,000, euros, your wish, but it costs you 20,000. And after ACCA, the benefit of it is 17,000. Would you be happy? No, right? Any information that you get, you need to ensure that it, any information that you get, you need to ensure that you spend on it, correct? You need to ensure that the benefit is more than the cost. Only then it is good. Otherwise, if the cost is more for anything, if the cost is more, benefit is less, it's not good. Same goes with information. In order to get information, many times you have to pay. The cost should be lesser than the benefit. Only then it is good information. You call it cost effective. Now, guys, I'll take a break from the class. And I have to tell you that I have been an examiner for ACCA exams. And for your PM paper, I know 2 questions that will surely come. For those who are with me, I'm ready to show it. Are we all ready? 2 questions that will surely come. I'm going to just copy paste the questions here, and they are definitely going to come. And I'll also share the answers. Just 1 second. And we'll go back to the class, don't worry. The next 2 minutes. Once you have a look at these questions, just look. No need to study it now. Just have a look at the question along with the answer. So here is the question, and the answer is also copy pasted. Just 10 seconds I will show and I will stop. Okay, ready? Everybody ready? Yes. This is the question and answer. I've written the correct question. I've written the correct answer. And I hope you copy the question in your notes along with the answer. Zohaib is sad. My students, they get angry. Angry is not literally angry, but so are you happy? Zohaib is not happy, right? So April 1st is over, but we're still in April. That is still not yet done pranking us. Alina, you were serious. Zohaib's heart broke. So yes, as you can see, information is good when you can understand, right? Ununderstandable information is not. So again, accurate, complete, cost effective, understandable. Then comes again, suppose now in this class, I start teaching you human anatomy. I'm sure nobody will be happy because it's not related to your topic, right? It's not related to your exam at all. So nobody will be happy. So whenever information is given to you, it needs to be to you. Only then it's good information. Otherwise, it's of no use to you, right? Then comes accessible. Accessible means, again, say, I have the question paper. Nobody at this point of time, nobody will believe. I have the question paper, okay, and all I have to do is give you access to the LMS which you have. Okay? So the minute we come here, once you log in, you will get the question paper. So what you do, you call me. Once you reach this part, you call me and you say, sir, can you share the email ID and password? So I say, no, sorry, and I cut the call. So although the question paper is there in this, you cannot log in because you don't have the password and you can't access it. So even if I have the real paper, it's not good information because it's not accessible to you. Then I'll tell you a funny incident. But off late, just yesterday, I went out with a friend, and off late, basically, not yesterday, but we were in a barbecue party. Okay, so one guy was nicely sitting and doing barbecue, one of the friends, and a couple of them were standing and talking, drinking cold drinks and all that. It was a nice environment all together, right? Suddenly, this gentleman who was sitting on the chair, that one of the chairs was weak. Okay, one of the chairs was weak. So that chair, not one of the chairs, one of the legs of the chair was weak. So this gentleman fell down. So obviously, unfortunately, God forgive me, but I was very happy. I was laughing, and everybody was happy, right? He fell down directly. And then one guy, he said, "Oh, actually, I saw that the leg of that chair was weak." He said that I had already seen it before you sat, but I forgot to tell you. Is this good information now? He's telling after falling, if he tells that the leg was weak. No, any information, if he would have told him, if now I am not that bad also, if I would have seen that the leg is shaking, I would have told this guy. I had not seen. But this guy in blue, he had seen it, but he forgot to tell. So now he was weak. So now, but this is no longer good information, because good information is always given on time. Any information that you get after time passing is not good information. And then finally comes good information is easy to use, just like your mobile. I mean, you will be happy with a device that is more easier to use, right? So that is what is qualities of good information. What are the qualities? You remember it by remembering the acronym ACCURATE, where A stands for accurate, C stands for complete, C stands for cost effective, U stands for understandable, R stands for relevant, A stands for accessible, T stands for timely, and E stands for easy to use. Now, data processing, as the name suggests, I said data is raw facts that hasn't yet been processed. Okay, data is raw facts. These raw facts are refined and processed to get information. This is refined and processed and now useful for decision making. This process of refining and processing the data, this process of refining and processing the data is known as data processing. As simple as that. Keep your life easy, keep your life simple, enjoy your life, don't complicate things. Data processing is the conversion of data into information by classifying, sorting, or producing total figures. That's all. Now, test your understanding too. Wait. Good information must be obtained cheaply. No, I don't think that's right. Information consists of raw facts and figures which have been recorded but not yet processed. I don't think both are right. The answer has to be D, neither. Now comes information technology. What is information technology? So this is basically, again, it's a very simple thing which says that anything, okay, like literally anything which is kind of like the hardware, the equipment, IT, technology, is any equipment. Number one, it is what? Any equipment and hardware that helps in collecting, storing, and sending information. Anything, for example, my mobile is an equipment that I use to collect, to store, to send information. So these are the tools and machines that are needed to store, capture, collect, send information. So this is the hardware that is needed. Remember, see, we have information, but where will we keep it? There needs to be certain tools. Those tools are information technology. So information technology is any equipment concerned with capture, storage, transmission of information. Right? Now comes to the information system. What is information system? It's like this. It's how it's the process. Okay, for example, your lungs, your what else? Or say your heart, your veins, arteries, blood. Now, I was supposed to be a doctor. Not many people know, but every now and then I go back to this: heart, veins, arteries, blood. That's why I gave that human anatomy example. So your heart, veins, arteries, blood, all of these are things, it's the equipment. But everything together is the circulatory system. Everything together is the circulatory system. This includes the organs, this includes the processes, this includes everything together, forms the circulatory system. So information system refers to the provision and management of information, the entire process. Information system is the entire process of providing and managing information for the organization. So the entire process is information system. Okay, so I hope the difference between IT and IS. IT is information technology, IS is the information system. Okay, now the entire process of providing and managing information for the organization. So for example, in Finchartered Academy, our process of providing information will help us connect with students, connect with suppliers, right? It will help us what? It will help us work smarter. It helps us work smarter using data in every part of the process. So in each and every part, we will use data. So we become more effective. We are more, we are more aware and informed. And again, good use of information systems will help us. Now, again, information system is the entire process of anything to do with information, right? It will help us assess. Now, again, I'm saying specifically from Finchartered Academy's point of view, because on the left-hand side, textbook has already told you about in general how it is. It will help us assess what do students want. Think about it, information. It will help us. What do students want? What do students value? right? Based on which we can make better products, better services, right? And based on information, if for example, we see that a lot of them want to do ACCA and they want to do some other course, maybe we will integrate, but this will be done by senior management, right? So information will help senior management to make smarter, more future ready decisions for the company. So I hope this is clear, guys. Again, we can keep going on and on this, right? But imagine, you have Zomato, you have Swiggy, you have Uber. They think of how much information they are using, right? And let's look at their information system. We get the name of the driver, we understand where is he, which car does he have, he gets certain details of yours. Immediately the number is shared, right? So information system itself, we need to ensure that we have it and we have a proper and correct use of it, because that will help us in these ways. Okay. Okay. I hope that is clear. Now, coming to the role of information system. See, when it comes to companies, when it comes to organizations require information for a lot of things. Like record transactions, make decisions. So many things need to be done. We need information for everything, right? For example, Rahul passed the exam. Good or bad? Again, in terms of ACCA, you will say good. But say you don't know which exam also. You don't, that's the problem. No? So in order to measure performance of Rahul, you need more information. Which exam did he pass? How much did he score? Right? So information system helps businesses in this. Okay, now again, there is some information on all of this, but information about each business transaction or event is required for a number of reasons. Okay. Documentation of transactions can be used as evidence in case of dispute. So you need to keep information in place. Transactions, okay, I bought this, you gave me this, but we need to have that information. Or now, because I've just done my accounting, I know that any transactions that I've done, I need what? I need to record those transactions. My accountant just was sitting and recording all the transactions before this class. But in order to record the transactions, he needs information. Without information, if he doesn't know for how much I bought the AC for, how will he record the transactions? So we need information to record transactions. And is recording transactions important? Yes. So is information important? Yes. So it is basically saying that information is needed to record transactions. Is recording transactions important? Go back to FA. I don't know how many of you did FA. Go back to FR. I don't know how many of you did FR, but you agree that we have to record transactions, right? Important? Yes. How will you record? You need information. Go back to the previous chapter. We said we need information about the cost. Only if we know the cost, we can determine a selling price. So definitely you need information for everything. As I said just now, you need information for decision making also. Like in order to decide, you need information. Right? Without information, how will you decide? I'm sure before you started ACCA, you got all the information about ACCA and only based on that you decided. Again, planning is something we will look at in more detail, but you need information for planning and for everything else. Controlling, performance management, measurement, everything we're doing now in PM. And you need information for each of this. For example, control in the previous chapter, when we did flexed budgets, we needed information, right? So information is ultimately the most important thing that you need. And that's why we need to have proper information systems in place. You understand? As I mentioned, information does not come free, has a cost. And as I mentioned, the value of the information should be more than the cost. That's what I said in cost effectiveness. Right? As I mentioned, I'll not go into details in this because I've already mentioned this, but I'm zooming in. I said the benefit of information should be more than the cost of the information. Okay, just have a look, see if there's any problem. Now, cost of a new system. So how does this happen? It's like this, that, see, again, having an information system is not free. Let me just put this properly. Having an information system will cost money, but it will be worth it if the benefits are more than the cost. As I said, benefits could be various. Benefits could be things like faster decisions made, better decisions made, better accurate records. Because in my information system, like for example, I will, in my LMS, I know how many of you are watching the recordings how many times. I can see it. How many of you've seen, how many of you've not watched any recordings, how many times, for how long. So my records are very accurate. Okay. Then what do we have? We have other benefits like what? Other benefits like customers are happy. But what about the costs? And this is where I will explain this. See, benefits we've seen, these are the benefits. But what are the costs? This is mapped against what? See, there are two things. Okay. The two things are, think of AC. When you get an AC, there are two types of costs. The initial cost of buying the AC, the initial cost, take the example of AC. There are two types of costs. The initial cost, the initial cost, the first cost of buying the AC, for example, buying the AC, installing the AC. This is the initial cost. Then after that, after you buy the AC, you have to run the AC. There will be running cost. For example, you need to pay maintenance charges, for example, right? Training charges. Like I have to train my staff. Like my AC is a self-cleaning AC. So I have to train my staff to clean the AC once a month. I need to tell them you have to click this, you have to do this, you have to do this. So there are two types of costs with buying an AC. Same way, with information system also, there are two types of costs, the initial cost and the running cost. Okay, I hope this is clear. So again, initial costs would be, you will have to purchase the software or the hardware, whatever it is. For example, okay, that is one. Then what do you have to do? You will have to do the original, you'll have to spend money in designing and testing. Like obviously you'll not start using it, you'll test it out, correct? And once you get, like for example, we bought the CRM, customer relationship management. We've bought the software, but now I have to train my staff, and training my staff is not free. I have to train my staff on how to use it. Not regularly, not running cost, but initially, even before they open it, they need to know how to run it, right? So training costs, initial training. These are all the initial costs. Then comes running cost. What do I mean by running cost? As I said, maintenance, IT support, IT support, continued ongoing training. So the cost of a new system has both initial costs and running cost. So we've looked at information technology. This is the hardware itself, the equipment itself. We looked at information system. We've looked at the role of IS. We looked at costs and benefits of IS along with initial costs and running costs. Okay, now there is still a reasonable amount of this chapter left, which again, unfortunately, I will have to finish only tomorrow. Guys, just excuse me. Yeah, so there is all this left, which we will complete tomorrow. And then we will move to the third chapter, which is on, this is a very interesting chapter, strategic, tactical, operational, um, MIS, transaction processing system, executive information, decision. All this is very interesting. CRM, as I said, structured, unstructured, big data. So what I will do tomorrow is complete the second chapter and go to the middle of the third chapter. How many chapters are there in your textbook? You have access to your textbook, right? Can you just check? One second. Let me go. So we have 16 chapters. So ideally, this week, I want to finish at least how many? Three. Yeah, so tomorrow we'll try to complete 3 chapters. If that does not happen, actually, technically, we have 15 chapters. 16 chapter is like not really a chapter. We can just like talk through it, walk through it, and that will be done. But I want to ideally complete 3 chapters. And again, fourth chapter more or less is over. Fourth chapter has all those things, ABC. Fourth chapter has ABC. We'll do one sum of, if you want, we can do it. Couple advantages, disadvantages of ABC. Throughput, I've already done key factor analysis, so throughput should be very easy for you. Um, Target costing. So technically, fourth chapter is over. Variable life cycle costing, all of that. So fourth chapter is done, but we will still go through that fast and complete it. Environmental costing, blah blah blah. The role of the management accountant. Okay, so again, we will make sure that tomorrow, at least we're in the middle of the 3 chapters. And if at all by tomorrow we're not in the middle of the third chapter, then we will keep some classes during the weekday also so that we can complete things on time. Also, as I said, we will be uploading questions where we are solving exam kit questions. So just give me 1 second. Mixture of F1 and okay. Also, if you found P, how do you find? Let me ask you, how do you find PM? Is it, what is your opinion about PM? Like this is your second week of class. So how is it? I'm not talking about my teaching. I'm talking about the PM subject. You want to decide after the fifth chapter. Okay. What about others? Upgraded MA. Yeah, so far good. Well, honestly speaking, uh, things from PM point of view will not get any harder, right? If so far you've understood things, nothing will get okay, so you can relax. But exam kit, you need to start as soon as possible. Exam kit need to start, meaning that in fact, as I said, we will also be uploading videos where we are solving exam kit questions. What I'm going to do is show you the textbook and the topics covered today side by side. Sorry, showing you the topics covered today. Meanwhile, I'll also mark like the attendance. So I have Adina, I have Fayaz. Any chance anybody is from Chennai? I have four present today. That's all. Nobody is from Chennai. So you can go through this now and let me know your overall happiness on a scale of 0 to 5. Oh, wow. Your grandfather was from Chennai. And now where are you from? I mean, now where are you based? Five. And Fayaz, you plan to come next year. Okay. Oh, okay. 15 years, your grandfather. Fine. You plan to come next year, Abdul Fayaz? Do come and see me. I'll be more than happy to have you. Meanwhile, just go through these topics to kind of be clear with what we've done. You can rate your understanding on a scale of 0 to 5, where it's not just the subject understanding, but your overall happiness on a scale of 0 to 5. So if you are angry about the pranking part, you can cut 1 mark. If you feel that the speed can be a little faster, you can cut 1 mark. Right? So it's overall satisfaction levels. Alina is 5, Zohaib is 4.5, Sandesh is 5, Fayaz is 5. Zohaib, you are 4.5 because pace. Pace is what? You want to go faster. Okay, fine. So we will go a little faster tomorrow, not so much, maybe 5% increase. We will increase the pace. Yeah, so maybe that's why, maybe not too much, just 5%. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, you need to understand well. That is very, very important. And as I said, see, I've been handling classes from a decade now, almost 10 years. Okay, so before we go out of control, if required, I will definitely reschedule classes in such a way that we have maybe one other session, because I have to agree that you know by mid you should be starting to write mock exams. So don't worry, we will plan it out. We're still in the beginning of April, so if required, we will have extra classes. Okay. Thank you so much. Be on time tomorrow. Tomorrow 5:30. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Yes, definitely. Inshallah, you will be.